Hi, my name is Winans with Chicago Fly Fishing Outfitters. Today we're going to be tying one of my favorite trout flies, the Soft Hackle Caddis. Going to run real quick through a list of materials. For hook, we're going to start out with a Tiemco 206BL in size 14. For the bead, we're going to just use the appropriate size. Today we'll be using a Montana Fly Tungsten 3/32. For thread, Gordon Griffith shear 14/0. For the ribbing material, ultra wire diameter brassy. For the abdomen or body material, Emergence sparkle yarn in light olive. For the back of the fly or the carapace, black Swiss straw. For the thorax, hare's ear dubbing, standard olive. Wing material, organza. And for the soft hackle, starling. To finish the fly off, we're going to use a small sparse collar of peacock sword feather. Okay, let's start tying. I'm going to start with my jam knot about mid-hook shank. First material I'll add to the hook is brassy diameter ultra wire. I'm going to start in about mid-hook shank or about 3/4 of the way up the hook shank from the hook bend. I'm going to work my way back with the thread and adjacent wraps all the way to the bend of the hook. And then I'm going to move my thread again up to that 3/4 point. I'm going to add black Swiss straw. I'm going to make sure that that Swiss straw goes in on top of the hook shank. And again, I'm going to wrap back in adjacent or abutting wraps, keeping that Swiss straw on top of the hook shank to the bend of the hook. Third material I'll add is our Emergence sparkle yarn. Going to put that in at the same place on the 3/4 point of the hook shank. Make sure I get all the tips in there, clean any errant fibers out, and wrap back to the bend of the hook. Going to move my bobbin up to the 3/4 point on the hook shank, or where my thorax is going to begin on this fly. And I'm going to take that Emergence sparkle yarn, add several twists so I have one tight cord of yarn. I'm going to twist counterclockwise. When I get it twisted so it's nice and tight, I'm going to take my hackle pliers and grab the bottom of that strand. I'm then going to start wrapping to create my abdomen. If you have a rotary feature on your vise, it can definitely help out in this step. But this gives us a nice segmented abdomen. When I get about 3/4 of the hook shank up the fly, I'm going to tie off that material with 3 or 4 bobbin tosses. Trim the remaining yarn. I'm going to bring the Swiss straw over the top of the body. This gives us a nice little two-tone effect on this fly. When I get that Swiss straw tied off, I can trim the excess. Okay, and wrap my wire. This wire is going to give us a nice segmentation, but it's also going to serve the purpose of reinforcing our Swiss straw. I'm going to get up to that thorax, going to tie off the wire with a few extra bobbin tosses. Okay, and trim any excess. Next step on this fly is just to add a pretty sparse thorax. I'm just going to use some trusty old hare's ear dubbing, color olive. And again, keep this pretty sparse because we have a few more steps left in this fly. Okay. When I'm done with that thorax, I'm going to add a little bit of wing material. This organza is great because it adds a nice kind of subtle sheen to the fly, not too flashy. Okay, I'm going to cross it over just in front of the thorax. Try to get a figure 8 in here if I can. Preen back the material, take a few wraps. Okay, so that's coming back at a slight angle. I'm then going to trim off that organza so the tips of it extend maybe to the mid-abdomen. And I'm going to go in with my soft hackle. Soft hackle material we're going to use is starling feather, the appropriate size. And I'm going to tip tie this feather in. So if I can isolate the tip, preening back the fibers. Get one nice wrap over the tip, 2 or 3 reinforcing wraps. Get in there and carefully trim any excess material. Go in with my hackle pliers, grab the butt of the feather. And we're going to try to stay pretty sparse with this soft hackle. If we can get it done in 2 to 3 wraps, we should be in good shape. There's 2 wraps. And we'll go 1 more for good measure. We come behind that soft hackle, tie it off, 3 wraps, go in and trim the butt of the feather. To dress this fly up a little bit, we're going to add a neat little collar, and we're going to use fibers from a peacock sword feather. Really sparse here, just 2 fibers ought to do it. And you use the tip material of these fibers. Go in and secure the tips just behind the bead. Once you feel like they're secure and not going to slip, we're going to reinforce them because they can be really fragile with a few turns of thread. So I'm going to just twist those sword fibers around the thread a few times. And again, sparse, taking maybe 2 or 3 wraps. When I've got it the way I want it to look, I'm going to tie off the sword fibers. Again, trim the excess, and I'm ready for my finishing knot. If I can use my whip finish tool, go in there with at least 4 wraps. Tighten that, trim, and there's my soft hackle caddis.